So this video is a refreshed and more organized version of two earlier smoothie videos I shared, but it's not just a video. It's actually a mini class, and you are welcome to take notes. I created this to help you build great tasting, balanced smoothies that actually support your body using a simple system based on flavor and function. Because let's be real, how often do you find a recipe online or in a book only to realize you're missing one or two or more ingredients? So, this guide will help you feel confident in creating smoothies on your own. All right, so master smoothie making. Let's get to it. We have 4 tips that we're going to go over, and then categories, formulas, and pairings. So, tip 1, start simple and small. Keep it simple. Stick to 2 fruits to avoid digestive issues and sugar spikes, especially if you're starting out new with smoothie making. You want to keep it small so you can get acclimated to like what pairs together very well. If there's something that you are unfamiliar with in taste, or it's bitter or sour, you want to place small portions in there. So here we go with tip 2. Match acidic fruits with acidic. Acidic pairs well together with itself. So be careful that you don't do too much. And sometimes a pinch of salt can help with the flavor when you're dealing with acidic. Also, you can add ginger to help with digestion and turmeric as an anti-inflammatory. So these two, like ginger and turmeric, will work well with a lot of acidics. So you could do pineapple and lime, for example. Maybe you want to add a pinch of salt in there, depending. And then you could add like ginger or turmeric. So sweet. So the sweet fruits. Too many sweet fruits will overload your blood sugar. One thing you can do is you can add some ginger or turmeric, but I'm also going to suggest this for those who cannot taste the sweetness. For like some people like dates, and they just need to keep adding more and more and more because they're like, I can't taste the sweetness. Their palate, their palate needs to be reset. A detox is needed. So you should be able to taste the sweetness in your smoothies without overloading them with sweet fruits. Next, we have green smoothies for our next tip. So this is something we probably all need more of, right? So this green smoothies, those that contain like your spinach, kale, parsley, and etc. Nuts really help neutralize the flavor due to the green's bitterness, and nuts is actually considered neutral in the categories. So make sure you check out in the description. I have the link for where you can download all the smoothie files so you can see the categories I have for each of these and measurements and some other information as well. Going back to the green smoothies, nuts will help neutralize that bitterness. Also, it will help slow digestion, stabilize your blood sugar, and keep you full. It'll give you that protein as well. Here's a tip within a tip: blend the nuts with water first for creaminess, then add the greens and the fruits. All right, so let's do a tips recap. Keep it simple, a couple fruits only. Keep it small, a pinch of this or a few leaves of that, especially if you're unfamiliar with the taste or it's bitter or sour. Because if you have something bitter and you put too much in and it overpowers your smoothie, you're going to be mad at yourself. So you want to start small. And also remember that acidic goes with acidic. Be careful, not too much though. You can add salt, ginger, or turmeric to that. And too many sweets equals blood sugar overload. Again, if you're a person that has strong sugar cravings, well, I would highly suggest you do a detox. And if you're making a green smoothie, nuts are a great thing to add to help neutralize bitterness and smooth out the taste. Now, y'all, we're going to get to part 2. This is where we get into the groove of things. And as I said earlier, check out the description for the link to get all the smoothie files. Sweet. So we talked a little bit about sweet earlier: banana, dates, mangoes, ripe pears, sweet apple, etc. These should be 1 part or less of your smoothie. They should also be used in moderation. Why? Because of blood sugar. Yes, we do need to consider that, even if you are not diabetic, to help if you feel like, or maybe I did add too many sweets to my smoothie, but I really want it to taste good. You could add a little bit of cinnamon, flax, or nuts to help reduce the sugar spike. So, and honestly, a simple smoothie is 1 banana, a pinch of cinnamon, and a little bit of flax, ma'am. Now, we're going to talk about sour, like your lemon, lime, green apple, etc. Sour foods will wake up your digestive system and metabolism. So they can also irritate your stomach lining, especially on an empty stomach. I know there's different trends like drinks a certain amount of lemon juice on an empty stomach in the AM for 7 days and this and that. You want to be careful with those things because again, lemon, like lemons are very acidic. So it can irritate some people initially. And then some people after a while, if they continue that, that trend of drinking something very acidic on an empty stomach, and especially if it's in any kind of considerable dose. Now, sour is also very refreshing and tends to have a lot of vitamin C. The other category that we have here is our bitters. So kale, dandelion greens, parsley, arugula, and so forth. They help balance the appetite. They are intense and they stimulate the liver and digestive system. So you definitely want to start small. They are bitter. They are bitter. Here are neutrals. So neutrals are like cucumber, zucchini, soaked nuts, chia seeds, hemp hearts, avocado, coconut water, etc. Neutrals are really good for adjusting the texture and toning down the stronger taste. So maybe from the sours and the bitters. Neutral ingredients pairs well with pretty much anything. And nuts are a good neutral, as I spoke to earlier, because they help, of course, neutralize flavor, slow digestion. They help stabilize blood sugar and they keep you full because of the protein. You definitely want to consider having a few different types of neutrals on hand to help with your smoothies. Now, we're going to take a moment to think. So, first thing, what are we thinking about? Want to keep in mind that enough of sour and or bitter equals bathroom. Like, it's better to be consistent than try to overload your body. Again, when it comes to the sour and bitter, just think a pinch of this or a few leaves or a teaspoon of that. Small portion sizes. All right, too much bitter or sour also ruins the taste. Once you take a little taste of the smoothie and you're like, okay, I could add another pinch of this or another teaspoon of that. Everybody's tolerance is going to be different. All of our body compositions are different. So you definitely want to start small and then adjust as needed. The third thing we want to think about is the sweet, that too much sweet elevates our blood sugar. So we want to think 1/2 to 1 part of one fruit per serving. And adding neutrals to sweet smoothies will be very beneficial to help keep the blood sugar calm, help stabilize the blood sugar. We're going to go to thinking part 2 here. When we add bitter, we want to add sweet or neutral for taste. We definitely are going to need to add a sweet or at the very least a neutral for taste. If we have a sour, we can add another sour because it does pair well. We could also add neutral if we wanted, and we could also add a sweet. When you have a sweet, you definitely want to add a neutral. How about even a bitter since you have that sweet fruit? When you have that sweet, you definitely want to add a neutral or bitter to it. You can add a sour to it as well, but you want to think neutral or bitter as the priority when you have something sweet. And when you have something sour, you want to think of neutral as the priority. And when you have something bitter, you want to think of sweet and or neutral as, both priorities there. All right, y'all. So we're going to put this all together. Thank you for hanging in there. So how I think it could be dangerous. So when I think of putting a smoothie together, I think about the last slide that we just went over. First, we want to think about what we're trying to accomplish. What are we trying to accomplish by making this smoothie? Do we just want a meal replacement? Are we just trying to get some grains in for the day? What are we doing? That's the first thing you want to do. And then to determine how you're going to approach your smoothie. So if I want some greens, right, for the day, and maybe I don't want to eat them, but I want to drink them. So I think to myself, okay, wow, I have some kale. I have some kale here. So that's a bitter, right? So then now in my mind, I'm thinking, oh, I need something sweet. I need a sweet fruit. I mean, if I have it, I hope I have it. But if I don't, then I'm going to probably use 2 neutrals. I'm going to try to find 2 things from the neutral category. So that's kind of one way to look at it. I'm just sharing how I kind of think. I'm not saying it's the only way to look at it, but that's just one way to think. For another example, I want something sweet. I want like a dessert kind of smoothie. So they might say, okay, well, you know what? I'm going to take 1 banana and I'm just going to add a little bit of nuts to it. And then that's it. So first, we just think about what the purpose is. And then from there, we kind of think about, okay, what do I have and how can I fulfill this purpose with, what I have? putting it all together. So we're going to look at some recipes or combos. First recipe is spinach, pear, and almond. Now, spinach is considered a bitter. So what are we going to do? We're going to do a small amount. So we're going to do a few leaves. A pear is in the sweet category. And the more ripe it is, it's definitely sweet. And then almonds are considered neutral. So we have that bitter. We're taking a small amount of bitter. We could take 1 part sweet, and then we could even add that neutral, where we could add 1/4 to 1 whole part. It just depends on the ingredient, right? And what makes sense. You might add one whole banana. Let's say it's a large banana, and that is roughly 1 cup. You might not want to add 1 cup of, almonds to this smoothie. You might only want to do a 1/2 cup almonds, and that's fine. Small amount of bitter, 1 part sweet, 1/4 to 1 part neutral would make a great smoothie. So I did not include, the amount of liquid to place in these smoothies. It just depends on how thin or thick you want your smoothie. But start at 1/3 cup, and then you can add more as and if needed. It also depends on the fruit too, because some foods, actually I shouldn't even say fruit, because some vegetables as well have a lot of water, high water content. So you may not need as much water for those smoothies if you have a lot of vegetables or fruits that have high water content versus those that don't. Let's look at our second ones. We have kale, which is a bitter, green apple, which is a sour, and walnuts, which is a neutral. So here we are starting off with that bitter. So we definitely want a small amount. So maybe we only want one big, kale leaf. And we have a green apple. Then you could add a neutral 1 part. When I go back a slide, right, and think about that part where we said think, all right, if we have a small amount of bitter and then I take a green apple, then then most likely I'm going to use 1 part, a full part, if I could say it like that, of a neutral. Why? Because I have a sour and a bitter. So to help neutralize that taste, I'm going to use a full part of the neutral. You see how sweets and neutrals can work together to make a smoothie taste better. So oftentimes, if you have bitter and sour in the same, you want to use a full part of the neutral and or sweet. Our next recipe, let's look at lime, pineapple, chia, or flax. So we have sour, so we're going to use a small amount. Pineapple, I consider sour/sweet. So I'm going to use 1 part. So let's say I'm just going to do a couple splashes of lime juice and then 1 cup of pineapple. Then I can add the chia or the flax. So let's think about this. This is why I put the thinking part on there. We have sour plus sour. So they pair well together. And then it's also sour sweet, right? So technically, I probably wouldn't need to even add anything else to this smoothie. However, if you wanted to, let's say, get some more fiber or something, and you wanted to add those chia seeds, you could. All right. And so in this case, you could add 1/4 to 1 part because sour and sour match. And then we also have a sour sweet combo in there. So we necessarily don't need a lot of neutral. Hopefully this is making sense. Let's get to the next slide. I've got more recipes coming. All right. So next we have dandelion greens, pineapple, and avocado. We all know that dandelion greens are very bitter. So we're going to use a small amount. And then we have pineapple, which serves as a sour and a sweet. So 1 part provides like a clean flavor. And then we put a little bit neutral. We could do 1/4 to 1 part to help even things out. Now, honestly, for some, they may only need the dandelion greens and the pineapple. But the avocado can serve a little piece, or a portion of an avocado can serve as to mellow things out. And again, we add water as needed. You want to start small with adding the water, maybe 1/3 cup. You just have a measuring cup with some water in it, and then you just pour it in there as, your thickness, to your thickness liking. The next recipe is banana, arugula, and almond milk. So a banana, we take 1 part, right? Bitter, we know we're going to use a small amount. And then we can add a neutral like almond milk. Again, we could probably just get away with the banana and the arugula for most of us and add just some water. But almond milk will help ensure that you don't taste any of the bitterness in the smoothie. So the next one is we have is pineapple, plus turmeric with a pinch of pepper, and coconut water. Now, turmeric and coconut go well together anyway. Good match. And the pineapple will help cover that turmeric and pepper flavor. So, and pineapple and coconut go well together. But we have pineapple, turmeric, a pinch of pepper, and coconut water. So we have that sweet sour 1 part. We have a small amount of bitter. So maybe we can do 1 cup pineapple, maybe a teaspoon of turmeric and pepper it together, and coconut water enough to allow the smoothie not to be so thick. Remember this, if you feel queasy, bloated, or just off after a smoothie, your body's talking to you. Your body's talking to you. So dial it back and start small. Add neutral ingredients and balance your flavors. Okay, so that goes back to those too many sweets, too much bitter, too much sour. Yeah, we want to make sure that sour and bitter, we do what? Start small. If we got sweets, 1 part. All right, thank you so much for watching. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more tips from Ready Garden. All right, y'all, take care and thank you for joining me for this Master Smoothie class.